According to the National Science Foundation, on average, people have around 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day. That is mind-blowing to me. 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day. Now, of those, 80% are negative. How crazy is that? And 95% are repetitive. So I want to talk about how we can shift that 80% of negative thoughts to more of a positive one. And I also want to break down what I believe to be true about these repetitive thoughts. 95% of our thoughts are repetitive. So if you are struggling with positive thinking, there's a very good chance that you are wired to think negatively. And that wiring is causing that 95% of repetition to be in the negative realm. Now, negative thinking, and something that I want to touch on, is that negative thinking is different than just having a regular worry. I know as a mom, I am constantly worried. I recently at an event asked a mom who said that her children were 20 years old. I said, when does this worrying stop? And she goes, unfortunately, never. I said, okay, so now I have to deal with this for the rest of my life. But negative thinking is different from just the regular worries we have. Worries are normal. It's a part of life. Feeling sad about an upsetting event or worrying about things like burdens are totally normal. It's when those thoughts and those feelings become repetitive and pervasive and they interfere with our work, our life, our relationships, and our everyday functioning that we've really got to figure out how to tip the scales. There's a chapter inside of my book, How Are You Really?, all about feeling your feelings. And I have the greatest teacher of all time. She does not have her doctorate in feelings. She is my 3.5-year-old Coco. Now, she has taught me so much about emotions. I want to raise an emotionally intelligent child. I actually signed up my entire team for emotional intelligence training for 6 months in 2020 because I wanted us to learn how our emotions and our feelings can impact the way that we show up, can impact our relationships, the work we do, and our understanding of other people. And one of the things that I included in my book was that a lot of times as adults, we try to rush through our feelings. I recognize this when I was teaching Coco about how to feel her feelings, is that a lot of times society paints the goal to just get to happiness, right? We see these beautiful quotes and graphics on Pinterest or Instagram, and it's like, makes it seem like happiness has to be our daily destination. And if we're unhappy, all we've got to do is figure out how to get happy. And I think happiness is great, but happiness is a moment. It's this thing in time. It's not something that can always be maintained. In fact, I think life is richer when we actually have feelings and we feel them. Now, the reason why I bring this up is when I think about positive thinking and when I think about how our brains are wired to continually have these repetitive thoughts, a lot of times those repetitive thoughts are rooted in negativity because we've never actually processed things like trauma or really dealt with how am I actually feeling right now and why am I feeling this way? And for me, I am a deep feeler. Most of my life, I grew up just saying with pride, like, I have a deep well of empathy. I'm a very empathetic person. And while that is a beautiful trait to have, it can also be really dangerous when it comes to things like positive thinking and emotions, because I am the type of person where oftentimes I will let someone else set the thermometer for where my emotions are. I like to meet people where they're at. And if I'm dealing with someone who's super negative, or who is super sad, or who is super stressed, a lot of times I can almost take on their emotions. Can anyone relate to that? Because I recognize those tendencies in my daughter. And it's something that I love about her because she has this deep well of empathy for other people. But it is also something that I want to equip her with the tools so that she can start to understand how to have her own emotions, her own feelings, and how to create boundaries around what she'll let in. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I think that positive thinking is fueled by who you surround yourself by. Have you ever noticed that when you are with negative people, you suddenly become far more negative? I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but there are members of our family, specifically in-laws, who are very negative. And I can see that when we are with them, we become more negative people. We start to focus on what's wrong and not see what's right. We start to talk about the things that are off instead of really realizing all that's going well. And I have had to literally do exercises in my life to protect the empathy that I have for other people while maintaining this ability to control my own thinking and my own emotions. This is a story, and it might not make sense to everyone, but I want to share it because when I was really struggling with empathy, someone once said this to me, and it really resonated with me. They said, people came to Jesus, not for him to meet them where they were at, but for him to raise them up to what he was. And I thought that was really powerful because I know that this community is filled with leaders. And a lot of times in an effort to connect with people, we go down to where they are at, right? We try to meet them where they're at. But true leaders raise people up to where we are. People are seeking out your leadership, Tiffany, your leadership, Letitia, your leadership, Alicia. They're seeking you out because they want you to raise them to what you know to be true. And a lot of times empathy teaches us to meet people where they're at. And guess what? Where they're at is probably not always a healthy place for us to reside, right? So when I think about positive thinking, I often have to think and almost clothe myself in armor in this essence of how can I protect my own energy and my own levels of thinking while still being intentional with how I'm showing up for people. And when I think about my career and the different levels of feedback that I get on a daily basis, whether it is positive feedback or criticism, I really have to figure out how to control my own degree of thinking. Because if I don't, one person's comment could set me off, or one person's disbelief in what I want to do could change my path. And a lot of us have experienced that, right? For those of us who are walking through life with unanswered callings or feeling like we've missed out on opportunities because we've worried so much about what people think about what we want to do or who we want to become, I think a lot of us are walking around with these unanswered calls because we haven't suited ourselves up in the armor that says, I am my own individual thinker. I have my own thoughts, my own dreams, my own ambitions, my own beliefs. And while I can help you or understand you or build a bridge to connect us, I also have to have this level of independent thinking. And so for me, oftentimes I literally have to clothe myself in armor, like envision myself just putting up a shield of armor and saying, I will accept feedback that will help me become better, but I will release or relinquish this desire to hold on to criticism or other people's negativity because I deeply know that it will impact how I move forward.
This can be your day for personal growth. This can be that day you committed to and you remember and you go, that was the day I got myself a community. I got better coaches. I committed to making my life the absolute best that I could. This is that day. Make today your growth day. Click the button on this page and sign up right now.